And if future politicians want to start conflicts, I think it's only fair that they have to dance it out first, just like, of course, Pooty Poot and George Twin Tower Bush did a few years ago. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski here of WeAreChange.org, and we have a lot of absolutely crazy news to get into, as of course we have more troubling developments from Ukraine. The situation there drastically escalating, and it looks like the worst of the fighting is still yet to come, especially with the latest news that Kamala Harris is being sent to the Polish-Ukrainian border. What's going on here? What's happening in Poland? Where we're going to be talking about that in this video. And we also have a very important interview with the CEO of Gold Mining Inc., as of course the price of gold has gone dramatically up. As of course the current financial situation in the world is very complex, which he will help us understand. Now, if you remember in yesterday's video, we talked about the Biden administration's plan to fix this mess, which they have partly caused by, of course, telling everyone just to buy electric vehicles. As today we are finding out that the London Metal Exchange has just suspended the trading of nickel, which of course is a key component to all electric car manufacturing. This of course will cause the price of electric cars to skyrocket, as of course super rich celebrities like George Takei, multi-billion-dollar institutions like CNN, and of course even the Washington Post, the newspaper owned by one of the world's richest people in the world, keep telling the American public, say that paying $4, $5, soon most likely $6, $7, $8, $9 a gallon, which is only going to impoverish the poorest people in the world, make the price of food go up dramatically, as well as everything else, is, quote, totally worth the price for the super rich, who of course are going to be unaffected by this. The people who are going to be affected are the people who are having a hard time making ends meet already, representing of course the majority of the United States. And as the global financial markets are already disrupted, still major institutions like McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Coca-Cola, and Starbucks have just decided to pull out of Russia, leaving many people wondering, how will the Russian deal with not having diabetes? This as Russia is being canceled by many multinational corporations, and the geopolitical picture looks a lot more complicated, especially with the latest news of Poland allegedly giving Ukraine their MiG-29 fighter jets in order to fight the Russians. And this is a very confusing situation, since of course the United States said that this was happening a few days ago. The Polish denied that. Now the Polish are saying that it will happen. The United States is now denying it, as of course the European Union and other factors decided to join in on this decision, and no one knows what's going on and whether Poland will or will not be sending their fighter jets to Ukraine. The United States was supposed to replenish Polish fighter jets with latest upgraded fighter planes in exchange for this deal. It looks like it's not going forward, so the United States is sending in Kamala Harris, one of the least liked politicians in the United States today, in order to help fix this situation, leaving many people hoping that her stay on the Polish-Ukrainian border is not as disastrous as her trip to the US-Mexican border, which was an utter PR disaster for the administration. All of this as the president of Ukraine is demanding now that Poland send their fighter jets to Ukraine, as of course he was also previously demanding a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which essentially would mean a war between Russia and the United States. There are still some sociopaths calling for this no-fly zone, which again has just been the rebranding of a full all-out conflict between two major nuclear powers. In other highly politicized disaster news, today we're also finding out, according to the Navy Times, that a U.S. destroyer cannot deploy because its crew members did not comply with a very political medical procedure that the establishment wants them to take, highlighting clear illogical political policies over, of course, military strategy. This as now China on the world stage is demanding that the United States explain itself to the biological research facilities that they had in Ukraine. Again, lots of crazy news surrounding this topic that we're going to be talking about later on today on LukeUncensored.com. Hope to see you there. But before even to talk about that, I wanted to bring on the CEO of GoldMining.com to help us explain some of these very turbulent economic and financial times that we are going through. Keep in mind that this video was conducted on behalf of GoldMining.com. We are working together together. And to me, this is a win-win for everyone, since we actually get to find out and meet someone in the real financial world, get their perspectives, experiences from what is really happening on the ground. We, of course, get supported by this, they get supported by this, and we get information that is critically important for all of us to understand. So without further ado, we're just going to jump to this interview. So Alistair, thank you so much for joining us. Before even getting into introductions, before people even get to find out who you are, what do you make of this bombshell news coming out right now of the Biden administration and its larger financial ramifications?
Well, I think it really helps support a hypothesis that we've been seeing or sensing for some time, is that there is some instability geopolitically around the world. There are insecurities or choppy waters ahead on the markets. And really, I think from my point of view and for many in the mining industry, those involved in precious metals, it really helps point to, a diversification in one's portfolio, the strength and the safe haven that precious metals will have in one's portfolio. So I think that just really underpins what we've been saying for some time, is to ensure people have some diversification, including precious metals in their portfolio.
Yeah, I think it's definitely fair to say that there's rough seas ahead, to say the least. But before getting into the larger financial spectrum of what you're seeing in the business world and what's really going out there, who are you and what is Gold Mining Inc.?
Well, thanks very much for having me on today. I'm Alistair Still, the Chief Executive Officer of Gold Mining Inc. We are a junior mining exploration and development company. We have a large portfolio of assets throughout the Americas with a very sizable resource base. There's some 16 million gold equivalent ounces in the measured and indicated categories, and an additional 16 million gold equivalent ounces in inferred categories. We have a strong balance sheet, over $100 million on our balance sheet, and we are ramping up and developing our projects to take them to the next level and unlock value for our shareholders.
Now, how has your business been faring? Because especially during the last 2 years, during these kind of global disruptions because of the global sickness that has been going around, how has your sector fared with all the global disruptions that have been happening, especially with the government lockdowns in Canada?
Well, I think in particular, our sector has fared relatively well. And I should point out that our particular company, Gold Mining Inc., we're not a producing mining company right now, but we are developing and advancing our projects. But I think in general, in the mining industry, has fared relatively well. And I think what that points to is that the mining companies have some pretty solid and first-class health and safety policies that have kept their workers safe. It's been able to let people continue on with their jobs and return home safely every night. And I think that speaks well to being prepared for all kinds of eventualities. The mining industry reacted very well for that and has come out relatively strong as a result.
Is there any way you could get into profits, budgets, and how this latest kind of global geopolitical news has affected your sector?
Well, I suppose in the most direct sense, the immediate impact is people see the increase in commodities. We're not an oil producing business, but we certainly are impacted by oil, and we all see the impact of oil when we go to fill up our cars at the pump. But what we are seeing, though, is a very sharp and dramatic rise in precious metals prices, gold in particular. Base metal prices have been rising. And these things are generally positive for our industry and our sector. But I guess it's important to point out, though, that as much as these are perhaps positive catalysts, they're coming at a horrific cost. This is a very troubling time throughout the world. And, the situation that's happening in Ukraine is a real tragedy that, has consequences throughout the world, and it certainly is impacting mining as we know it, and the prices we're paying for not just our metals and precious metals, but we're also seeing that now in at the gas pump and inflation with our food costs. So it's having a ripple effect across many sectors.
Yeah, I definitely think it's fair to say that we're in a bull market with commodities and precious metals, to say the least, because of the global instability. But from your perspective, your ear on the ground in the business world, how do you see things moving forward with all of this kind of global instability? What's your projections for the future?
Well, I think you said it well earlier that they're certainly in for some choppy waters, and any forecast is going to have some up and down to it. But from our point of view, the instability we're seeing geopolitically, what we're seeing with inflation, All of these things ultimately bode well for metal prices. And historically, when times have been in difficult and uncertain times globally, people have sought a safe haven. And traditionally, gold for millennia has actually been a store of value, and people have turned to gold in uncertain times. And we see that trend continuing this time, with the ultimate impact being a continued rise in metal prices, particularly gold, which is what we're so heavily weighted in.
Yeah, even Russia has been using it as a safe haven. I remember reporting for many years now, Russia on the world stage buying some gold, this signaling some alarms, and there's also a lot of news coming in that Russia is trying to potentially offload some gold, reserve some more gold, or use it as a way against some of the sanctions. What do you make of this news coming in from Russia and its gold reserves, and will that affect your business in some way?
Well, I'm not sure how much it will directly impact it, and we certainly have to sort through some of the news reports and see what's verified and what comes to fruition. But those of us who've been in the industry for a while, and I've been fortunate to work some 25 plus years in the industry. We've seen cycles before where prices have gone up and down, and I remember it seems like not too long ago, but was certainly in the 1990s. Gold was hovering near $250 an ounce. Today, it's over $2,000 an ounce, and many of the same issues that were in play in the 1990s are at play now. At that time, it was the central banks, what they're doing with their gold reserves. Were they selling them? Were they keeping them? There was this new advent of EFTs and what people were investing in. So a similar situation today, are people investing in gold or Bitcoin? So, I mean, a lot of the factors are the same, but I think overall the trend has been consistent, and we would point to the same trend again this time, is that in these uncertain times, the safe haven and people turning to gold, we can see this going on really quite a sustained rally here.
So Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg recently have been promoting kind of green electric cars and alternatives, and they're saying that, out of all of this chaos, what the best thing to do is to promote green energy. Now, you guys also work with uranium projects. Do you expect, unlike Germany, the Western world to embrace this resource, or do you see them kind of pushing away from it?
Well, I think the overall trend is, pushing towards greener energy, and what that's defined as and what types of energy are more green than the others, is perhaps for a different conversation. But what I would say is that I think that trend and push towards greener energy is something that will continue. I think that drives a number of things. It means that the mining companies will be required to produce metals. I mean, green energy does not come for free. It comes at a cost. It comes from products that need to be mined. It's similar to the way oil is pumped from the ground. Metals need to be produced to produce the batteries for cars, the new cars themselves, and even the infrastructure for providing energy to electric vehicles. There's going to be significant upgrades needed to electrical lines throughout the country and across the globe. And where does that come from? Predominantly copper. So that's going to drive the push for copper. And on the uranium piece, I mean, that's a debate that's gone on for decades about uranium energy and whether it's green or where it really fits in. We're fortunate in our company, even though we're a gold mining company, we actually have a uranium project. It's not a core project for us, but it is a project we inherited a few years ago. It's a very sizable land package, and it happens to be in the Athabasca Basin of Canada, which hosts some of the highest grade uranium deposits in the world, sometimes up to 100 times higher than the global average. So it's a great prospective land package, and something that for our company, we could see ourselves monetizing or being a part of a spin out as companies do search for and seek out additional types of green energy.
Now, which projects would you say you're most excited about? Because you're the CEO of this company. And the larger question I really wanted to ask you, what do you hope to achieve? What's your goals moving forward? And again, predominantly, what are you most excited about?
Well, it's a great question. And really at gold mining, it has done a tremendous job over the past 10 years of acquiring assets. And it acquired assets when there were actually downturns in the cycle. So when gold was out of favor, prices for the metal were lower, our company was actually out buying in those dips in the market and down cycles. And as such, we picked up a very sizable portfolio. However, that portfolio, for it to grow, needs nurturing, needs investment, needs further studies. And that's the phase we're in now, is starting to unlock value from a very large portfolio. We have 11 projects throughout the Americas that have resources on them. We're not a huge company, so we won't advance them all. We will look for partners, and some majors, intermediate mining companies are looking at our assets. We're looking to partner with them to advance them. But we're also moving a couple of projects ourselves. Take, for instance, our La Mina project in Colombia. We announced a preliminary economic assessment on our project this year, and it showed a very attractive economic return on a project that would produce over 1 million gold equivalent ounces over about a 10-year mine life, with some very attractive opportunities to enhance that value, such as some very attractive exploration targets, which could significantly grow that resource, further add to economics. And then another project, which would be very much a little closer to home, we have a very sizable resource on our Whistler project, which is in Alaska. And just last week, we announced we have created a new subsidiary, wholly owned subsidiary of our company, which we intend to launch into a public vehicle, likely through an IPO in the next few months, where we can attract new investment to that project to drill that project in Alaska, which is a very sizable resource. There's some 9.4 million gold equivalent ounces of gold and copper. It's actually about 30% of the resources in copper. So there's over 1 billion pounds of copper there. So it has a gold base, but also has important copper, which is a driver for some of the alternative energy sources going forward and the increased infrastructure to drive that. So we see Whistler being a core project for us. And, I could go on about our projects, but, we're excited about them. And as we bring on partners, we can further unlock value. And we also have a project in Brazil, which is a very sizable resource. There's over 1.4 million ounces of gold. It's very close to infrastructure. It's less than a mile from the state highway. It's got electrical lines nearby. It does not have a army of illegal miners on top of it like there are in some places of the world. So a good solid resource and a good mining jurisdiction close to infrastructure, those are the type of projects that companies are looking for. And what we have seen over the past 10 years, certainly amongst major companies and producers and the global powerhouses, they have not been replacing their reserves on an annual basis from their annual production. So when they have declining reserves, what do mining companies have to do? They can either ramp up exploration, which will take years to replace things if they're even successful, or they have to go out and buy additional projects to put into their pipeline. And we certainly think we have a treasure trove of assets in our portfolio that would be attractive to a number of companies.
Do you guys hold any gold reserves yourself? What more can you tell us about that? And what moves in the market are you making that makes you different from your competition?
We, at this point, don't have physical gold product. Our reserves of gold, silver, and copper are calculated resources of mining projects of metal in the ground. So having a sizable resource base of some 32 million ounces really gives investors in our company enormous leverage to prices of gold. And when the price of gold starts to move, our stock historically has performed extremely well. Just this year alone, our price is up some 60% as of the date of this recording. It's one of the best performers on the GDXJ, the VanEck ETF mining index. So it's performing very well, and it's largely because yes, price of gold has moved, but I think companies are starting to realize in this big global portfolio we have in the Americas, we certainly have assets that have intrinsic value. They've been undervalued for a number of years, and as we start to advance them, the true value of those assets is really coming through.
What would you say separates you guys from all the other kind of gold mining companies out there? What makes you different from the rest of the pack and the competition?
It's a great question. I think you can boil it down to two key ingredients. One is the assets, and the second is the balance sheet. And when I talk about assets, I'm talking really two components of the assets. That's the people running the company. We have some exceptional people at our company. I've built a team around me of some very experienced technical experts who, in the last few months, we've added 2 individuals with more than 50 years combined experience working for major mining companies and operating companies. So we've brought in tremendous experience. We're led by our chairman and founder, Amir Adnani, who's a tremendous entrepreneur. He's had great success, not only with this company, but also with a company called Gold Royalty, which we spun out last year, which has greatly improved our balance sheet. And so we have people, the assets themselves, 32 million ounces for a company our size. That's unheard of. That's a tremendous resource that we have. Those gold equivalent ounces, it's mainly gold. Almost 80% is based in gold, but there is almost 20% copper, and there's a small component of silver in that as well. So tremendous resources, all in the Americas with a good team. And the second component then is the balance sheet. What separates us from many juniors who are not in production is having a healthy balance sheet. We have over $100 million on our balance sheet, consisting of cash and a sizable equity position of a company called Gold Royalty Corp, which was a great value enhancing and value unlocking transaction that we completed just less than a year ago. We created a new company called Gold Royalty Corp. We created it by writing small royalties on our existing portfolio of assets, putting those royalties into a new vehicle, launching it as an IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. We brought in an experienced management team led by David Garofalo and John Griffith. And that company is now worth some $600 plus million market cap. And that's in less than a year. And we're fortunate enough to own 20 million shares in it. So they're liquid shares. They're tremendous long-term value for us. And as an added bonus, those shares are now paying a quarterly dividend. So we have almost $1 million, or $800,000 to $1 million at the current levels of the dividend that comes to us as being a shareholder. So simplified, it's great assets. That's the people and the physical assets in the ground. They're all in the Americas, and we have a tremendous balance sheet. Really sets us apart and makes us stand out from many of our peers or competitors.
Yeah, Alistair, we had Amir on this show previously before, and we talked about a wide-ranging amount of economic topics. And if you go back in those videos, you could see that they were kind of prophetic, to say the least, especially with the current economic trends that we're dealing with. Alistair, anything else you want to get into specifically when it comes to your company, the global kind of financial picture, the way you kind of see things moving forward before we end this interview?
Well, I think I would just like to, reiterate that it is in these troubling times where we see high rates of inflation. We all see that every time we go to the grocery store or we go to fill up our vehicles with gas. We know inflation is real. It's a significant impact to us. We see the troubling times that are occurring in the Ukraine right now. We are uncertain what that could mean to us. And it's in those uncertain times, in those choppy waters, that historically we've seen people seek safe haven in their investments. And I think a diversification in people's portfolio to include a significant component of gold, such as gold equities like Gold Mining Inc., is a very, it would be a wise thing to do for people to increase their exposure and protect themselves as we navigate these choppy waters.
So, Alistair, if people want to find out more about your company and get involved or in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
That's easy. We have a great website that people can access and sign up for a newsletter, www.goldmining.com. We trade on the New York Stock Exchange American, ticker symbol GLDG. And we also trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the TSX, and the ticker symbol there, very easy, GOLD, gold.
Alistair, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your kind of ear-on-the-ground information of what's really going on there in the real financial world. We really appreciate it. We thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us and giving us your important perspective about what's going on here. If you guys liked and appreciated this video, click like, share this video, and because you do, we are still here. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. This is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.